Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If you are watching, let us know where you are watching from and what your names are and what you think about the topics that we are going to be discussing today, particularly the 20th of May celebration. We've seen festivities across the country in the far north regions of Cameroon, in the far north region of Cameroon, in the northwest, in the southwest. We've seen what has been happening in the conflict hit part of the country. And today, like I said, we are going to be discussing the significance of May 20th, which is the National Unity Day. May 20th, 1972 is the day that Cameroon's first and former president that we all know, Amadou Ahidjo, changed the form of the state from a federal one to a unitary one. This is going to be a little bit historic, but it's very important that we put everything into context. This came as a result of a referendum. I'm talking about May 1972, a referendum that recorded a 99% yes vote. It was referred to many as unconstitutional. People said that it was unconstitutional even to date. Historians have termed it as unconstitutional. Legal experts, human rights advocates, because the people were not given the option to vote against the referendum itself. The no option, which is also known as non in French, the ballot, it wasn't seen at the polling station at the time, and it made it a democratic farce. It means that it's some sort of an untrue something that is not true. A farce is something that is not true rather than a referendum. The Yaoundé government has forced this farce into the throats of many, especially citizens in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon, Cameroonians in general, even those in the diaspora. But today's anglophone conflict, it started in 2016, today's anglophone conflict, which include other major grievances. We also have not just this referendum that took place in 1972. We have marginalization. We have so many other things happening, has exposed the lapses of the so-called unity that's been preached on a daily basis. Today, we are going to be looking at the significance of May 20th, like I announced earlier, the problems that it caused, and of course, the solutions. I told you that I would be having a guest, a special guest, of course. He has a mastery, a broad mastery of Cameroon's history. He's a politician. He's been part of the system, and he is still part of the system, but from a different angle. He's looking at things from a very different perspective at this point in time. And he thinks that the solution should be what the government is not preaching now. Is Dr. Benjamin Aki. He's an associate professor. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today. You are joining us live on Mimi for Info platform, and we are talking about the May 20th celebration. You are a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at Syracuse University in the United States of America. Am I correct?
Syracuse, yes, thanks.
Thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Mimi Mefo, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to say hello to your viewers, and I look forward to a useful discussion on this very crucial topic. And you mentioned that I'm from the system in the sense that I believe in a reunified Cameroon. That makes me part of the system, but profoundly, I am a defender of constitutional government.
Yeah, you've already given a brief. It's now you've just given of us a brief introduction about who you are, and thank you for that. We see hundreds of people already following. Please share with friends so that they can come on board and understand the whole dynamics behind this celebration today, the May 20th, the National Unity Day in Cameroon. And talking about Dr. Benjamin Aki, since the start of the Anglophone crisis, like he said earlier, he's been engaged as a political activist defending constitutional rule in the reunified Cameroon. But at this point in time, he's fully advocating for a return to federalism on grounds that the unitary state and separation are unconstitutional based on the reunification contract, like I said earlier. He also believes that while Cameroon clearly faces serious conflict, this can be resolved in a way that preserves a united and prosperous Cameroon Federation. Once more, Dr. Benjamin Aki, thank you for joining us. We are going to move straight away to our first question. Before May 20th, 1972, Viewers, you just have to bear with us a little bit before we get into the problems and the solutions. We'll have to take you a little bit back to history so that you understand the context of this discussion today. There was the reunification I'm talking about before the May 20th, 1972. We had reunification, which took place in 1961, bringing together Southern Cameroons and the French Cameroon. 11 years later, after living together, what the French speaking people or the Yaoundé regime will call le vivre ensemble, came the unitary state that we are celebrating today. Cameroonians are celebrating today. The BR regime is celebrating today. Can you briefly tell us, Dr. Benjamin Aki, what this day actually signifies to Cameroon?
May 20th is a constitutional violation that the government is trying so hard to hide from the people, but it can no longer hide that fact. Let us start and make it clear to your viewers and everybody who is watching us that national unity is not the same as unitary state. National unity is not the same as unitary state. Reunification is not the same as the referendum to end the federal system of government. To make this discussion clear, let us bear in mind the country, the United States of America, as an example. It is a federation. It is a federation with states that have definite powers, yet they act as a country. The boundaries of the country are set and they are enlarged when new units join, but it is a country, and the pledge of allegiance that has been consolidated in that country. The citizen pledges allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the pledge of America, one of the clearest examples of a federation. The first victory for anglophone Cameroonians is to make the distinction between national unity and the unitary state. National unity is what we signed up for in 1961. The unitary state is what the government in Yaoundé is using to crush our people, to assimilate Anglophones, to dominate the people from West Cameroon, and to completely wipe out our history, rewrite it in a way that is against the future of our children. We must make the distinction that reunification was in 1961, and the clearest example is that if you see a historical picture from Fumban, it is written on the walls, how nice it is for brothers to meet. Vive le Cameroun réunifié. So that reunification took place in 1961, and shamelessly, our brothers and sisters in East Cameroon today refer to May 20th as the celebration of the reunification. No, that was a constitutional violation that continues to plague our nation. And we Anglophones must stand up to make that distinction. To say that Cameroon is united, to say that we are for national unity, is not to sign up to the fraud that is called unitary state, because it is against the constitution that brought us together. And that, in effect, it is in fact the contract of our reunification, the constitution that was put together in 1961 and came into force 1st October 1961. It was not perfect, but it was perfectible. But removing federation was not a method to perfect that. It was a fraud that has gloriously been celebrated today as the Day of National Unity. The government understands that. The government says 50 years of unitary state, but the media and the Francophones are saying 50 years of national unity. So they know what they are playing. It is for us, people of West Cameroon, to stand up and rewrite history properly.
And then what are some of the problems of the national unity? Because the Yaoundé regime would say otherwise. What are some of the problems that this national unity constitute?
National unity just refers to the fact that we have definite boundaries of the country called Cameroon, and we have a constitution according to which laws are made, because the constitution is the law about how to make law within the state. So national unity only refers to that. But unfortunately, we are dealing with our brothers and sisters from the Francophone tradition, to whom national unity is the same as unitary state, and national unity means no to opposition politics. But precisely competition, the spirit of competition, is what holds a country together and protects the constitution. So if we want to see the problems of 1972, we want to start to look at 1964 and 1966. In 1964, when there were elections in East Cameroon, the Union Camerounaise completely destroyed all the other parties and won most of the seat. And in West Cameroon, unfortunately, that tradition also came in there, and the party of Indele was completely destroyed, and Foncha won. So that prepared the way to lead to one-party system in 1966. We must be clear, the Francophone understanding and all of Francophone Africa, they have difficulty coming to terms with the fact that we can have national unity and have a thriving opposition where people are able to discuss, debate ideas, form political parties, and publicly beg for votes from the people. It is that synonymous relation between national unity and unitary state that we must reject. And we see that federations are really very common in Anglophone countries, or mostly what I might call
So
Protestant.
let me ask you a question, Dr. Benaki. Should this day be celebrated actually?
No, absolutely not. It should never be. It should never have been made a holiday. It was made a holiday precisely for the sake of changing our history and for the sake of hiding the constitutional coup d'etat, which was done in that 1972. There were clear violations of the constitution, at least three of them that we can name if we want to discuss that. But it should not be celebrated. And if there is a day that is to be celebrated, it can be the 1st October, which was the reunification and the constitution coming into force. That is truly a day that should be celebrated by all Cameroonians. But if Cameroon said, let us celebrate 1st January, there could still be a reason for that celebration, even though we joined later on, because in America, the 4th of July is celebrated by all states of the United States, whereas when the United States obtained independence from the British Empire on that 4th of July, there were only about 13 states of the many states now. Some of them were recarved, but state like Texas, California, they were not there. Today, they celebrate that 4th of July. So there is some historical reason that can justify the celebration of 1st October as a national day. It was reunification. It was the birth of the federal constitution and the true defender of the rights of the people and the liberty of the people of Cameroon. 1st October, it was a fake kind of independence. We can go into that. But some of the problems we are facing, even in the 1960s, in the 1970s, they began in 1958. You could just bear with me to clarify that point.
Yeah.
The fact is, the reunification of Cameroon is really the work of the UPC, of Ruben Umnyobe, Felix Mumie, and Enes Wanji, and Ntumaza, as well as Albert Muko. So, but by 1955, afraid of the popularity of the UPC, the parties that were closely aligned with France, they banned the UPC in East Cameroon. And the UPC escaped to British Southern Cameroon and continued to promote the idea of the two Cameroons coming back together before independence. That was the idea. But when UPC went underground in 1955, after they were banned, they started, the Maquis, they started attacking the government, bringing terror. That's what happens with French systems. When citizens are not allowed to do politics publicly, they get on the ground and then chaos begins. So that's what started. But the government soon realized that it was very difficult to win the war against the UPC because the population supported UPC. And now, because the government didn't understand why they supported UPC, the French sent a particular commissioner who was a socialist. And as a socialist, he understood the desire of people to be free and to govern themselves and to make their own associations as they like. So the trick that the commissioner brought from France was to take the program of the UPC and make it the program of the French government. So he went to Parliament in 1958 and he said, France now supports reunification. We should note that the people who govern Cameroon today were not in favor of reunification.
What were they in favor of?
André Marimbida was against reunification. They understood that we bring a certain way of thinking that can change the authoritarian system in the East. So they did not want that. They just wanted independence. But even that independence, André Marimbida said it is too early for the people of Cameroon to get independence. So their view was to delay the independence of Cameroon until about 1970. But this was opposite the idea of UPC. So UPC had very clear ideas that were supported by the people. Let us reunify with our brothers from English-speaking Cameroon, from British Cameroon, and let us get our independence as soon as possible. This is what Nyobe said at the UN. This is the speech he said. I have a copy of that. So, but now when this French man came, his idea was, let us change the politics. Let us pretend to have taken over the politics of the UPC. Let's say we support your reunification if our brothers want to reunify with us, and we will give independence as soon as possible. So he said independence will be granted within 2 years, and that's what happened. So independence came in 1960. Because of that, mostly because of that, André Marimbida resigned as prime minister because he could not support what he did not stand for. That's when Ahidjo was put in place. And they formed a new party. What was the name of the party? Union Camerounaise. What was the name of UPC? Union de Population Camerounaise. So they're just playing with the idea that the real fathers of reunification started. So we can already see that the mission that brought Cameroon together was really a mission of people who were saying one thing and doing another thing. In this collaboration, we have France, who is the master planner, and then you have some Francophone Cameroonians who are playing a game that they do not really understand. They understand partially, but they are being used by France to achieve a particular goal. And that goal was, we need to defeat UPC, and the best way to defeat UPC is to embrace their program and bring in the Anglophones. But since we cannot tolerate the Anglophones changing the mentality of most Francophones, we have to assimilate and make them like us. So that was the program.
And we are where we are today, Doctor.
Longer, but I think it's important for us to put that in place.
That's very, very important, and thank you for that. And that is why we are also here today, Dr. Benaki, with the problems of national unity, reunification, and independence that, according to many Cameroonians, somehow forged. And many people think that today's date shouldn't actually be celebrated. In Cameroon, we've had two governments. You've mentioned them already. The government of Amadou Ahidjo. I mean, when I'm talking about governments, I'm talking about those who have ruled the country as presidents. President Amadou Ahidjo, and we now have the current regime, the New Deal regime of President Biada has been there for 40 years, and we are still counting. They have contributed somehow to the problems that we have in the country today. Can you tell us how much they've done to be able to consolidate this national unity? Have they even done anything at all?
Well, in their plan, when they say national unity, they mean assimilation, domination, marginalization, and total absorption of the British way of thinking that had permitted in Cameroon. That means citizens hold their government accountable. If that is what they are consolidating, then they want to celebrate that they have achieved it. Except that when we look at 2016, we are now not quite sure whether they have succeeded. It is not now clear that the government controls Cameroon. That's what they wanted, because that's their project of national unity. Control the minds of Cameroonians in everything. control them even in election. So until, and if you look at 1992 with the coming 1990 with the coming of multi-party politics, then you can see that they did not win, even though SDF died and many other parties became very weak. But they cannot predict that parties will not continue to come and galvanize the ambitions of the people to hold their government accountable. So their project is to dominate, but also to infantilize the population of Cameroon so that they believe in father of the nation who decides what you should have for breakfast. That is what they are looking for. In that idea, they have failed, but we cannot even talk about national unity. We know the country is not united, the country is divided now. But their real project, the project of control of the population, has failed because the people, Frundi came with multi-party politics and won the election of 1992, and then they found ways to still crush him. And then we got to 2016, the anglophones, they rose up. What I'm saying is that the way the 2016 uprising came, it diverted towards separation. But if we are to defeat this system, we must defeat it on the principle of law. And the principle of law is that you do not correct a violation with another violation of the law. Separation is unconstitutional. And therefore, if we want to fight the government of Cameroon, we must fight it without embracing separation. Separation cannot be an indirect way to get to federation, and federation cannot be an indirect way to get to separation. We are very clear on that. Federation means no to unitary state. It also means no to breaking up the country. That's the only meaning.
No to no to breaking up the country, no to unitary state. Federalism. We've got people who are for federalism, and we've got people who are for separation, and their opinions actually do count. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring everyone on board because with time, we would have the opportunity to have everyone to come here and talk about what they think about the national unity, the celebration of May 20th, and even when October 1 is approaching, we'll make sure that we bring everyone on board to have this discussion, which is very, very important to our history. Let me come back to you, Dr. Ben Aki. You were advocating for a constitutional rule in the reunified Cameroon before. Can you tell me why you thought at that point in time that unity was an option?
Now, I will come back to
and
the
why the
principle.
U-turn? And why the U-turn?
Once more?
And why
Sorry.
the U-turn? And why
Why
now?
did
Why
I
do you
change?
now
So
think
let
that
me explain
federalism?
let me explain my strategy. So apart from my training as an engineer, I also have some training in political theory. So in political theory, unilateral separation of a country is not possible unless by war. If you win the war, of course, you rewrite the law. So in 2016, 2017, I understood that the suffering of our people is such that they will misguidedly embrace the idea of separation. But they mistakenly believe that they can go to the UN and get the UN to change the way things are in Cameroon and give them independence. I knew and I know that this is impossible. So what I knew was that when they realize that this is what is happening, they will pick up guns. But when they pick up guns, it will take them 20 to 30 years to realize that even these guns cannot give us that independence. I wanted to stop that. And children were not going to school. I actively got involved in March. By then, children were not going to school, common entrance, they were not able to write and all of that. So solely on the basis of that, I understood that the rule of law for 4,000 years in the history of mankind, the law has been used by the population to bring down governments that are oppressing them. So if a government is powerful, you need two things. You need the law and you need the population behind you to get to crush that government. Unfortunately, in West Cameroon, we only have the people. We have the people who support separation, but we don't have the law that can allow us to get to separation. The gun, of course, is a way of making law.
That's why the population is fighting for that to happen. I mean, for those who
Yes,
believe in
if
separation,
if they
that's why
want
they
to
are
fight,
fighting.
if they want to fight for independence and win it, then let them go ahead and fight. But one thing you know is that the way you approach that kind of fight, you don't start, you're not starting with a political party that was in West Cameroon choosing to become an independent organization, and therefore with a structured, with a structure where people are elected to represent them to fight for that separation. What you have is a system of anarchy. And that system of anarchy, which begins by saying no to government, cannot also institute government within its own separatist project. And therefore, what you have is anarchy. And the first victims of anarchy are the people that you are fighting for. So that's
So,
what I understood.
Dr. Benaki, let me ask, who is expected to grant the federalism or make federalism happen? Is it the government
Uh,
in place? Just a question before I
it's
continue.
a political game that the people of West Cameroon can make happen tomorrow. We can
On their
make
own,
federalism come back before
without the regime or with
2026.
the regime. Who is going to facilitate the process? Is it the Yaoundé government?
We need, first of all, we need two things. We need massive registered voters who vote as a bloc and vote strategically. Second, we need to do everything possible to make sure that we have a competitive election. Because when you have a one-party system, your vote does not count. You cannot solve anything by
So
vote.
it should be organized by the government in place with the electoral system in place, or you want the English speaking population to organize this. I just want to understand. We are
Yes,
having a discussion here because
it's
so many
these
people
are
are
very
watching. We have to
important
understand.
questions. They are very important questions, and they are very difficult questions. I must admit that they are very difficult questions. But it's that I'm thinking of the most practical way that you can resolve the problem. So let us start by acknowledging the fact that the country of Cameroon has set the minimum voting age at 20 years. This is the highest in the world, the highest in Africa. Do you know why? Because they don't want young people to vote. The young people will probably vote against the government. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the government has convinced the people of Cameroon that voting doesn't matter. You should not vote. So people don't register to vote, or those who register to vote don't come out to vote. But if you look carefully, as bad as the electoral system is in Cameroon, elections are most transparent in the Northwest region and in littoral region. Why is that so? That is so because the people are engaged.
Mm.
And then if you look at the electoral code, you figure out that the electoral code is designed to help the party in power. And to
Exactly.
change that electoral code, you need majority support in parliament and at the presidency. But the code in place was designed to make sure that this party in power always wins. Therefore, if you want to fight the party in power, you cannot start by saying that I will not vote until they change the electoral code. Why would they choose it? Why would
No,
they change it at all?
I was coming
Yeah,
to, I
so
was
I'm coming
coming
to
to,
my point now. I'm coming
okay,
to my point
okay,
now that
okay, go ahead,
we
doctor.
have a way to make sure that our votes count and that we vote massively and that we encourage a
Mm.
competition and to make very clear that we are 20%. We just need to make the presidential election be in such a way that the top two candidates have a difference which is less than 20%. If they have a difference between them that is less than 20%, as shown by the polls, your platform, Mimi, can
Yes.
help the people of Cameroon know what the political atmosphere is. The
Mm.
government of Cameroon has banned polling, opinion polls. In every country now, we know the president who is going to be elected before the election because of polling. But Cameroon doesn't want that to happen. Right now, we are doing these polls. We are using the power of internet to poll Cameroonians and show how Cameroonians think. So we are already changing the game, and your platform and other journalists can contribute to that. So with the system in power, it doesn't mean that they will accept the result. It just means that many Cameroonians will know that the result Elecam is proclaiming are not the results that are expected based on the months and months and months of
Yes,
polling data.
Dr. Benaki, we are talking about a big problem here. It's cost the lives of thousands, and we are still counting on a daily basis. Even today, people are being killed in the two anglophone regions of Cameroon. Before, there were problems in the country. We've talked about the Marquis era. We've talked about the protests that were taking place in the country. But people have never been killed in the history of the country at this rate. The number of people that have been killed in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Children have not been deprived of education for this. It's been so long already. We are 6 years into this conflict, and the conflict is still deepening. People have never fled the country to Nigeria, probably as citizens, those who are in the far north region of the country, because of the Boko Haram crisis. But the number of people in Nigeria keep increasing. I mean, those fleeing from the Tungi. So we are talking about a more complex situation here. And we are not looking at cosmetic solutions. We are looking at workable and durable solutions that would be beneficial for everybody. The reason why I was asking about federalism, I'm a journalist and I'm curious. I want to know, they are separatists, pro-independence fighters. You are for federalism. We have unionists, those who believe that Cameroon should be one and indivisible. But you, as a federalist, I'm asking you these questions because you are on this platform today. I want to understand how workable, how this can be a solution. Tell me, Dr. Ben Aki, the government of Cameroon held a national dialogue in October 2019. It took 1 year for a committee to discuss resolutions, not solutions, to be put in place. And it took several months for the special status to be put in place. And you know what has been going on. We've had committees upon committees. We had decentralization that you at one point even supported, and it's always been a fiasco from day one. It's been existing for decades. It's never succeeded. So why do you think that the government would just give you federalism on a platter? Why do you think so? Why do you think that federalism could even be an option, or it could be the solution? Why do you think so? Do you think that if the people of English-speaking Cameroon want federalism, if they are given federalism, would the war end? Those are my questions.
It breaks my heart, Mimi, to see the suffering that our people have gone through. But unfortunately, as someone who studies the complexity of these problems, unfortunately, I'm telling you that unless we figure out how to help ourselves, nobody's going to help us. The international community is not going to help us. What we are doing is a small conflict that doesn't really command their attention. So we have to put that in perspective. But we also have to put in perspective what I have just described. I am not saying that the government of Cameroon is going to give us federalism, because they would have done so. And when we say two government, it's really one government. We must not forget that President Biya was the Secretary General at the presidency when the referendum was conducted. So he drafted most of these ideas and even the Constitution. And later on, he became the Prime Minister in 1975. And then in 1979, France, together with Ahidjo, they changed the Constitution to make him the constitutional successor. So we're dealing with a very, very complex system here. I have no illusion that people who were not for reunification, people who were not for independence, and people who figure out how to crush political party competition in Cameroon and then change federalism to a unitary state, I have no illusion that these people would willingly give us that federation. I am talking about putting our message to the people of West Cameroon to figure out that Ben Aki cannot give you a solution. The government cannot give you a solution, but you alone, you cannot give the solution. But if we put out our ideas and begin to put our heads together, begin to say what every one of us needs to do, and collectively we push for the federation to come, it is possible for us to be writing a federal constitution by the year 2026. And I am focusing on the year 2025. The first thing I'm saying is that if you do not have a voting card now and you do not have a gun fighting for independence, you need to choose one of the two. And it is easier for you to, first of all, get a voting card. If you get a gun, the government can kill you. If you get a voting card, the government will respect you because you are beginning to build your dignity. You are beginning to show that you have a path to force them to give you the federation. So the point is that we should not have any illusion. I have so many respectable Anglophones who are staying say we are waiting on the head of state to do something. The head of state is not even fulfilling his constitutional duty as president of the country.
Okay,
Let me solve a very complex.
you have said it clearly. You have said it clearly, but the President Biya is still the leader of the country. People are asking that he should provide solutions to these problems. The international community has been speaking. Everyone, lawyers in Cameroon, politicians, many people are jailed because they have been speaking about this. You are also talking about this. But the leadership is still there, saying that there's national unity. The question that I wanted to ask you is, because the regime has failed to provide solutions for 6 years now, since 2016, do you think that if Biya is not present today, would there be a solution to the Anglophone crisis? Do you think the solution is for Biya to go?
Let us not lose illusion that Ahidjo was there. Ahidjo left, Biya came, Biya continued the project. If we allow the system in Yaoundé to continue that project that started in 1958, then of course we shouldn't hope that there is going to be a federation. We have to force it. We have to force it to happen. And the way we force it is that you, Mimi Mefo, you can contribute. If we are getting closer to 2025, and you start on your platform directly asking Cameroonians who they are going to vote for, we will know. Elekam will not tell us. And it is very likely that the people of Cameroon will make the just decision. Now we have SDF is for federation, MRC is for federation, Cabral Libby's party is for federation, right? So you already have Federalist Party. We just need to say, it's not enough to say you're for federation. This is what we want to see in the federation. That's what Anglophones need to do. But now what Anglophones need to make clear is that no Anglophone who cares about the people of West Cameroon will vote in 2025 for a candidate who supports the unitary state or for a party that supports the unitary state. If we make that very clear, and if we get our people registered massively, Elekam will know. Right now, we have about 600,000 registered people, voters in the Northwest.
Before we conclude this phase of the discussion, you're saying Elections Cameroon can actually organize this, and it turns out to be successful. It turns out that federalism is finally, the English-speaking population finally get the federalism that you are talking about through Elekam. Is that what you're saying? Because
I've not completed the story. I'm saying that we are going to do opinion polls. We are going to get our people registered. We're going to make clear that we only vote for people who are federalists. And as the polls begin to show that CPDM is losing because they are not federalist, the CPDM will be forced to hold a convention and change their party to become federalist, to be competitive in all of Cameroon. Because then there are Francophones who are asking us, what can we do to help you, our brothers and sisters?
So federalism would be the only option during the vote. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I want. That's so what we can force it.
What you want, okay. Because I wanted to ask, the next question was, what about those who are not for federalism? Are you saying that their opinions don't count?
This is the point I'm making. I cannot repeat it enough. That I know that in 1961, if you get three options, do you want independence by joining Nigeria? Do you want independence by joining Cameroon? Do you want independence as a standalone country? It's no question that you would have had about 90% for a standalone country. But the two options were restricted for technical reasons and for geopolitical reasons. Now, that referendum, that plebiscite was binding. We became part of Cameroon, and we became a federation that is governed by a constitution. A federation stands or falls based on constitution. The Article 47.1 in the constitution that says we should not do anything that would destroy the integrity of the federation. It means that unitary state is illegal. It also means that separation is illegal. Now, it doesn't,
Okay.
for example, if you go to Britain now, if you ask in Britain whether the British people want to have the monarchy, you may have majority saying that we don't want to have the monarchy. But that question will never be put there because the unwritten constitution of Britain preserves the monarchy. So that is a privilege question. It's not a question to be put to vote. And some people quote Canada, for example. They talk about Quebec and so on. In a recent show, I explained because I know the system in Canada. Canada voted in 1980. Quebec voted on the question whether they should ask the government of Canada to separate. The vote did not pass. Most of the people say, no, we're happy to be Canadian. In 1995, they voted against not to separate, but to ask the government to separate. So it came very close. And because of that, the government of Canada said, we need to act here. So they referred the question to the Supreme Court. They asked, can a region in Canada unilaterally seek separation? Then number two, they said, does the international law give power to a region in Canada or in any country to break away from the government, even if that government does not say yes? And then number three was that in case of a conflict that a region wants to separate and the law of the land says no, and international law says yes, which law should be more important? So from Canada, we can learn from the way the Supreme Court of Canada resolved that question. We can learn critical things. Number one, a region of the country doesn't have the unilateral power to break away from the central government. So you cannot have a restricted referendum to ask the people of West Cameroon to go. You might have 100% who support it, but the law does. You have to have a law that backs up a democratic process. That's what a constitutional democracy is.
Yeah, but
It's
when we are talking
democracy
about all
based
this,
on the
I'm
law.
happy that you are using very concrete examples. But when you look at the systems in Canada, in the United States that you've been quoting, it's a little bit different. We have different systems, we have different leadership, different governments. We have a government in Cameroon that would never say yes, even to the highest pressure. From the start of this crisis, if it was a government which listens, it should have been resolved by now. So I ask you, before we move to something else, why do you think, why do you think that federalism can be a solution? Why do you think it can be a solution
Because
to the
many
conflict?
countries around the world have shown that when you have a federal system of government, you have enough local authority on your affairs. And then you also have a connection to a larger country that can create a big market, but it protects you. Now, it sets up competition in a number of ways. So the states and the federal government has a clear delineation of powers. And what I am advocating for is that we should have a federal constitution and each state should have its state constitution that clearly limits the powers of the federal government and provides also the power for the municipalities, the local government. We cannot no longer just say, okay, the state government is going to handle that. Right down to the small county, they would have their own powers protected in a state constitution, and the state constitution has its power protected in the federal constitution. That's where the fight is first. That's what a federation gives you the power to do. Then add on to this protection of division of powers and division of resources, you have competing political parties. As long as you have competing political parties, they always tend to do what the people want because they need vote. As long as you're able to get the elections to get towards an honest reflection of the will of the people, you're going to have that. But that somebody may tell me that it is impossible to get honest elections in Cameroon. It is possible. When you add polling to these elections and you add massive voting to this election, then you add another element that if we see the result of the election different from the polling that has been reflected, and we have proof of fraud, we need to go down to the street and keep the street engage. Because studies have shown that if you can bring out 1 to 3% of the population to defend a cause on the street that is supported by majority of the people sitting at home, no government, even a dictatorship, no government can stop you from achieving what you want. So you have to be in the process of doing something that is prescribed by the law. And the law says one vote, one voter, one vote. If you can show that this is not the case, then you have a case. Any government that has a rigged election should be afraid of the people. And that's what we need to get to.
So we can see a lot of questions coming in. We appreciate those of you commenting out there, watching live from across Cameroon and the world. We see people watching from the US, from Dubai, from Bamenda. We see people from Ngokotunja. We see people from Yaoundé, Douala. We do appreciate. We can see so many questions, so many comments. We'll try to read some of them so that Doctor can get to respond. Let us come now to the role of the international community. You have a very broad knowledge how what obtains out here in the diaspora on the international scene. International bodies have been reacting. The US has spoken. We've had the Swiss-led mediation that was initiated, and we really do not know where it stands at this point in time. We have France that is not in, is not out, not deciding. We also have Germany that is trying to see the way out. The way out. We have a lot of countries trying to come in, even the United Kingdom. We have a lot of countries in the world talking, but action is very minimal. There is absolutely no action at all, because if there were actions, we would have seen results on the ground. The question is, the Anglophone conflict has been termed one of the world's most neglected, yet the worst, one of the worst conflicts in the world. We've seen a lot of things happening in countries, African countries like Ethiopia, and we see how the international community is on what is going on a daily basis, trying to provide solutions, making statements, trying to come in to provide solutions, like I said earlier. But in Cameroon, that seems not to be the case. What is the problem? Why the
Well, the
delay?
problem is that Cameroon is very connected. It has very strong public relation, and all of that paid for by money extracted from the people of West Cameroon. Cameroon has very, very strong diplomatic connection. The war in Cameroon is prosecuted with the assistance of an Israeli citizen. The beer is run by Israeli, right? So we have mercenaries running our country. And Israel has very, very good experience with playing down the powers of the United Nations on very key resolutions. So the public image of Paul Biya that is painted here in the United States is done with money from West Cameroon and is done with the help of experts from Israel, for example. Then you have China. Cameroon owes most of the debt Cameroon owes to foreign countries, it owes to China. And China is very interested in having mining contracts. But these mines are not just in West Cameroon, the mines are also in East Cameroon. So it's a much more complex situation. The United States is already interested in the oil pipeline from Chad through Cameroon, which is Francophone, down to the coast. There are other mining, gold mining results. Not long ago, America signed, an American citizen signed the right to do some mining in the eastern region. So the thing is that when you have a problem that can be solved by the people of the country, and they decide to go towards the international system, what you create is competition for lucrative trade deals and for positioning geopolitical reasons. It has nothing to do with what we are going through. What comes to the forefront is the interest of the various countries. France, of course, does not want a federation, because if Cameroon becomes a federation, the political structure in Cameroon will change. The citizens will have a say. Any country that can vote in a president and vote out a president and protect its constitution, has already liberated itself from its colonial masters. If Cameroon does that, then that means that the Chadians will copy. That means that Central Africa will copy. That means Congo will copy, Gabon will copy, Equatorial Guinea. If you are France and you have interest in this region, you have everything to lose if you allow Cameroon to become that. So we have to realize what fight we are against. But now France has collaborations with the United States, for example, in NATO. They work together in NATO on common projects. So we cannot really see France and United States as being enemies or as being rivalries. So at one point, the common interest in Cameroon will be sacrificed for another. The interest of the U.S. in Cameroon will be sacrificed for common interest somewhere. And we have a country here, Great Britain, or the Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland doesn't even pretend to be on our side on trying to resolve this. It's signing contracts with the government of Cameroon, and it's protecting Cameroon at the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth right now should have been in a position to suspend Cameroon until it resolves a conflict that is very, very serious, and an election crisis that are completely against the principles of countries in the Commonwealth. So we have a system where our conflict is now sacrificed for the interest of competing power. Even the Swiss people that are coordinating this mediation, they are supposed to be doing it free of charge. But their most important interest is to get to the port of Douala, for example, is to have the right to be able to take over from Bolloré and all of this Kribi. And if you're talking about Kribi, this is not in West Cameroon. So their interest is diversified. It's not just on the Anglophone side, it's all of Cameroon. And that makes it very complex.
So basically,
it's the interest of the Anglophone Cameroon to become forefront.
Basically, it's not the plight of the people that matters. It's actually the interest.
Exactly. So this is real politics. This is real politics where it is not moral. Unfortunately, that is the way the world works. But if we show that we can win to bring Cameroon to a certain place, then everybody wants to be a winner. So we have to show that we can win. And so the way we win is not fighting for separation. The way we win is we say we can change Cameroon so that elections determine what the people want, and the people of Northwest and Southwest, they're not going to vote for a party that supports the unitary state. We have to get to that point where it is very clear to the people of Northwest and Southwest that you cannot send a member of parliament to Yaoundé who is a member of a party that does not support federalism. That's how we win. If we can get to a point where we show that the vote, the deciding 20% vote of Anglophone is going to determine the next president of Cameroon, the Chinese will listen to us.
So now we are having this question before we go. I would want to, it's coming in from Sariki Vanel. He says that the 20th of May is celebrated as a National Unity Day. For the past 5 years, Yaoundé has been celebrating, but the entire Anglophone regions are ghosted. Did the Anglophone population vote for their demise? That's the question.
Well, it is difficult for us to talk about the vote. So he's assuming, I mentioned about 1972, there were 3 violations there. So the first violation is that the federation should never have been ended. So the constitution can be amended, but it was clear that no amendment should end the federation. Then number 2 was that if you want to do an amendment of the constitution, you need to pass through parliament and get majority of each of the states of West Cameroon and East Cameroon. You must have majority from the members of parliament. So Hijo, first of all, disrespected that article that says don't end the federation, disrespected that article that says that you should amend the constitution by passing through parliament, and then choose to use a referendum. But by doing so, that referendum says, he was using an article that says the sovereignty of the people of Cameroon belongs to the people of Cameroon, and no region should exercise it. No individual should exercise it. But when you look at elections from 90, first, Ahidjo became president when we got into independence without an election. So they did everything to avoid an election. So he needed to get to an independent Cameroon in 1960 without an election. And once there, he started consolidating the parties. That's why in 1964, his party got almost all the seats in East Cameroon, and Fonche's party got all the seats in West Cameroon. And in 1966, he said, let's have one party. Before that 1966, we had the election of 1965. That was the first election where he was president and Foncha was the vice president. What was the score? 99.9%, right? And then we came to 1970. Now he was presidential candidate and Muna was the vice president. He had 100%. Then he forged a referendum. People, if you ask people in West Cameroon whether they voted, actually, let's correct the idea. You had a yes and a no. There were yes and no, but it didn't matter what you vote because the results that were reported had nothing to do with what the people voted. I've heard anecdotal story that the students of Cas Bambili, they voted overwhelmingly to reject. They voted with a no to overwhelmingly reject the change to a unitary state. But the result, the principal, or everybody, they said, they told us if we send this result, we will be sent to prison. So they want 100%. So they reported 100%. So the vote has nothing to do with the will of the people of Cameroon. And 1975, he chose out 100%.
This person was asking some sort of a practical question because he's a victim of what's happening, the conflict. So he's simply asking, the Yaoundé regime will go about celebrating its national unity. The President Paul Biya is out also taking part in the parade in Yaoundé. We also have march past in Boya, in Bamenda, but we saw ghost towns in some parts of the English-speaking regions. There's ghost town, people are affected, highly affected. Businesses have crumbled. We know so many people survive through the businesses that they do, especially our mothers back home, our sisters back home, and even some of our brothers back home. But if they cannot go on with their day-to-day activities, they are frustrated. That's why he was asking whether they actually voted for their demise, because the Yaoundé regime seems so unconcerned that they are going through all of this, the ghost town, the fighting, the gunshots, the killings, and it seems like everything is just going on normal, like some government ministers will say that everything is going on normally. So he was asking if they actually voted for their demise. That's what he was asking. So
yes, so that question, underline that question. I put my answer because underline that question is the communication of the sense that we are helpless victims. I want to fight for West Cameroonians to change that viewpoint because you are hoping that the people in Yaoundé can do something to help you. You should stop that. They have not done it. They have not done it for 50 years. They have not done it for 60 years. We should stop hoping that they will do something to help us. We have to be in a position of persecuted people who are fighting. We have to have a fighting spirit because now, yes, East Cameroon is celebrating, but East Cameroon is celebrating while we have the prime minister is anglophone, Atanganji, who is the minister of territorial administration, is anglophone. You have anglophones there. You have anglophones in the regional council. You have anglophone chiefs who are working together with the government. So you do have people here who you have members of parliament, most of them who are CPDM. They say they represent you, and those members of parliament are celebrating. Are you saying that the members of parliament from Northwest and Southwest are not celebrating today? They are celebrating. So we should understand that there is a certain alliance that is pretending that life is returning to normal, and they need to pretend that in order to give a certain projection to the international community that we are managing the situation, we have a national dialogue, and everything is coming back fine, apart from a few fighting people here and there. If they can go behind the scene and buy them up and give them money, then that will be fine. So we need to understand that we must not put forward the picture of helpless victims to the world. The world does not care, and Biya does not care, and the system does not care. We need to put forward the system, the idea that we are persecuted, but we are fighters, and we have a way that we are going to find our solution and get back to a federation. That's
we are coming to the end of this debate, and I want to ask this question before we go. Dr. Ndaf Cliff is asking that his question is that What must be done to put a stop to the war ongoing in West Cameroon?
I realistically don't think that we can stop it before 2025 when we have election. But what we will do will be bit by bit, but yet it will come together as a big thing. So I'm telling your viewers, get your voting card. If you're 20 years old and you don't have a voting card, you don't want to end this conflict. If you want to end this conflict and you are above 20 years old, first thing, your first contribution, don't say that Aki will give you a federation or government will give you federation. The government will not give you federation, and I have no power to give you a federation. But your voting card will win you, first of all, dignity, and it will get us to a strategic position where we can coordinate issues. We should stop depending on a selected number of anglophones because the Swiss mediation is being prolonged by members of our community who truly want to do something for our people, but they just realize that they have been caught in a trap. They cannot really help us. So let us diversify the people who are fighting for our liberation. It must be every woman, every man who is above 20 years. First, get your voting card. And once you get your voting card, we get to the point, we will begin to show the polling station here. No party that has not officially become a federalist party should win up to 10% of the vote in Northwest and Southwest. Now, it's a different thing whether they will try to fraud. We should have the mechanism, like the people of Bamenda, like the people of the Northwest, like the people of Littoral. We will force the election, even with Elekam and all of this. We will fight, and we will fight if the results are not what we expect. That is where the fight is. And we should not be helpless victims. We should be fighters. And that's my message, that we cannot change things until 2025, but 2025 is a battle. If we want to win that battle, we start preparing now by getting our voting cards.
And we cannot wait to get there to see what is going to happen so that the war can end. Do you have any final words? But before you say anything, I want to say that we so much appreciate, Doctor, that you came to share your opinions, your views. They really matter. We need to bring everyone on board to talk about what should be the way out. This has been an ongoing conflict. The consequences have been disastrous on the local population, on women, on children on a daily basis. We have ghost towns, we have people without lives like before. In neighboring Nigeria, in the French-speaking parts of Cameroon, children are unable to go to school, like I said earlier. We keep worrying what is going to be, what the future is going to look like. So it's so important that you came. And we also call on those who are watching to be very civil. We want to thank you for commenting, for reacting. We are here to bring in constructive discussions. We are here for constructive discussions to seek solutions to the conflict and not to insult, to throw insults and throw words, because that's also not going to be the solution. The solution is what is going to happen? How can we end this? So your opinions count, but please be civil. Once more, Doctor, do you have any final words?
Thank you very much for this invitation. I very much appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to discuss. And as you can see, I am worried about the situation. It breaks my heart how many people have died, how many children have lost the opportunity to have a good education, how our schools have been destroyed. But unfortunately, when I think about it and think about the international system, I realize that only we, the people of West Cameroon, can solve this problem by coordinating our ideas and working carefully. The issues are very complex, and that's why I've written about 2 books. And then the first one is really the West Cameroon problem and its solution. There are copies of it now in Cameroon. You can contact me if you want to get a copy. It's about 3,500 francs. But the key idea there is to say that the solution to our plight, first, it starts with acknowledging that we are Cameroonians. Cameroon is our country. This is where we are going to fight to be respected and to be given the right to govern ourselves the way we see fit. So we need to restore the federation, and we need a Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation Commission to account for all the war crimes committed since 2016. We feel your pains, but we need to create a formal system where you'll be compensated and then those who have committed those crimes will be brought to justice. And we need a task force that will look at the development differences between East and West Cameroon for over this 60 years, and then we try to correct them. We get the government to correct them. But the key is to get to a federal government in Cameroon, and the only way to get there is by being actively involved in voting. If we want to be protected in Cameroon as a minority, we must subscribe to the principle of constitutional democracy, constitutional government, and we must subscribe to a federation. A federation is protected by the Constitution, and that protection also says that the unitary state is not allowed, separation is not allowed. We shouldn't waste our energy on separation because nobody's going to give it to us. Now, if you have a magic solution to win the war, then you can go ahead and win the war. The laws will be written anew. But as you can see, the victims of the war are mostly our people, are mostly our fighters. So we must think again and realize that the voting card gives us dignity. It gives us strategic advantage to get to where we are going, so that in 2025, we do not have a mayor who supports a unitary state party. We do not have a member of parliament who supports a unitary state party. And we do not vote for any president who is going to continue the unitary state. They must promise that as soon as they're elected, they will start a constitutional conference. We don't want empty dialogue. We want a constitutional conference where they will begin to say, this is what I want to see in the Constitution. And after they draft that Constitution, we need a referendum to accept or reject it. So we should have the power to determine our future. It's a difficult situation, but working together, I think we can achieve that goal. And I want to thank you and thank you, our viewer, for this opportunity.
Thank you
The
as
more
well.
we talk about it, we don't have the solution, but you'll begin to see that it's a difficult task. And what we're asking you to do is difficult, but it gets easier as we begin to do it bit by bit.
Yeah, but to me, Doctor, before we go, it can only be made easy if everyone is given the voice. We have to come together on board, but every opinion should count. That's my own logic, my own understanding of the situation. We would continue the debate. We'll bring other actors on board like we've always done. We've brought pro-separatist leaders. We've always brought even unionists, even though most of them would not want to come on this platform. We appreciate all the opinions, all the voices that are coming to provide solutions to the crisis, to the conflict, to the war. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Benjamin Aki, for joining us. We hope to have you some other time again. Goodbye. Thank you once
very
again.
much.
Bye. And I'm going to continue with my viewers to talk about, because I earlier announced that I was going to give the names of the winners of the giveaway because it's taken a couple of days already. Thank you so much for your comments. All of you who joined in the discussion, who joined the debate, commenting, talking about what's happening, talking about May 20 celebration. We really do appreciate you all. We also have this comment from, I already highlighted, I don't know why it went. He was talking about the fact that I said people could ask questions, but I'm not reading them out. It's difficult sometimes to read them live because they keep coming. Many questions come. It's not like they are being ignored. But next time we'll make things quite easier, and possibly there would be a secretary with us to go through some of the questions and highlight them and make sure that we read them while we are live. Thank you once again. And for the winners of the giveaway, I want to seize this opportunity to say thank you for all your wishes. Thank you for all the prayers. Thank you for everything. And Maidin is spelled Maidine, is one of the winners. I'm calling on you to get in touch with us. Our WhatsApp number is already there, and you have to make sure that your mobile money number has your name. So if you have a fake account, you might not be able to benefit because we don't want people to come and reap where they didn't sow, unfortunately. And we also have Helio Dayo is one of the winners as well. Congratulations and thank you so much for your wishes. We have Providence Windom. Providence Windom, you're one of the winners. Thank you so much. And we have Chris IK. Make sure, like I said, that your Facebook name has your mobile money name, and we are going to pay you according to the name that we find it. If we don't find that name on your mobile money when we are doing the payment, we are not going to make the payment, unfortunately. And we have Vanessa Etara. You're also one of the winners. Congratulations. We have Tipang Ophelia. Ophelia, you're one of the winners. Congratulations. Thank you. Paul Trigger, you also won. Thank you. We saw your comment and all the prayers and all the kind words that you sent through. Flora Lesiga, thank you. You are also one of the winners. And we have Philip Feuba. Feuba is spelled Feuba. Is one of the winners. You said God should protect me. Thank you. And we have Eugene Tido. You are also one of the winners. Congratulations. We have Violet. Yiye Violet is one of the winners as well. You commented saying that enjoy your new age with your beautiful daughter. More blessings on the way. Amen. Thank you. And we have Petit Efandeson. I hope that's your name. Congratulations. I'll be waiting to get to receive your messages inbox. If not, I'll also get to publish the winners, the names of the winners on this platform so that you all can see. Once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Wishing you all the best wherever you're watching from. Have a good evening. Have a good day. If it is afternoon where you are, if it is morning, if it is night, God bless you. And continue to follow me for info, especially our website where we have all the breaking news, all the stories in Cameroon happening. Bye. Stay blessed. End the live broadcast.